Hey everyone, what's up? Yes, it is TGIF Friday, September 15th, 2017. And I thought I'd come on here, and you see the title below. Basically, I want to discuss um, a question that, and I tried to talk about this during the live feed or the live stream that I did during my lunch, where I talked about, Global Force Wrestling's current situation. Um, and I talked about this before, I think briefly, but one of the things that a lot of fans that watch all kinds of wrestling, from WWE to, from WWE to from WWE to Ring of Honor to Global Force itself, to PWG, WCPW, ICW, NXT, the WWE brand. Um, Crash, if you're into that, AAA, New Japan, CMLL, all kinds of promotions out there. And one question that people like OTR Central, Sleg Daddy, Deluxe Man, Brian Alvarez, Solomonster, Don Tony and Kevin Castle, Dave Meltzer, anybody's been probably wondering and asking is, why is GFW, as the title says here, why is GFW, Global Force Wrestling, focusing on other promotions? This is a question, you know, it's like, why are they focusing on other promotions besides their own? And this is a question that um, a lot of people that are wrestling fans that want to support GFW, want to see it do good, that want to disavouch, ouch, or disavouch and distance themselves from any kind of rumors and stuff that might discourage people from trying to support this product. These people are still wondering why GFW is doing this. And I think when you look at it from a perspective of GF, you look at it from a wrestling perspective. Let me take you back in time. Okay, let me take you back in time. All right, let me take you back in time. You see, associating with other promotions is nothing new to wrestling. All right, you go back as far as the territorial days of old, and you've had different competitors appear in different promotions. You had different champions appear in different promotions. When the WWE was the WWF, and even when it been to be in the WWF, they were still, in a sense, associated with the NWA. So even though they clearly had a champion, let's say in Bob Backlund, they were still, because of their association somewhat with the NWA, still required to bring in NWA competitors or NWA champions. And that's what they did. That's why when you go on the WWE network and you see these hidden gems or these unreleased matches being broadcast, you'll see one of them is Harley Race against Bob Backlund, champion against champion. So it's nothing new. It's nothing new when you take a look at a company like, say, WCW. One of their long-standing relationships that they had was with New Japan, and then later on AAA. Heck, WWE even partnered with AAA, I think simultaneously at the same time WCW did, for a talent exchange. So, it's nothing new. And WWE did this, what, in like WCW, both companies did this in the mid to late 90s. And why did they do this? So they can get more exposure for their product, as well as possibly scout and look at new talent that they could probably sign to their company. They can sign exclusively to the company. So when people ask why is GFW doing this, it pretty much goes back to that mentality, that old mentality that WCW had, that ECW had when they partnered with FMW and AAA at one time, as well as CMLL. You know, it's that mentality of, if they can bring in talents from other promotions to work for them, they could, from other promotions to work for them. Not only not only is it a win-win situation for them to have these talents that nobody knows of, but being on this bigger stage, fans will get to see and get to know. It's a win-win because they get possibly talent that they can sign exclusively to contracts down the line if they choose to, and at the same time, they give exposure to other promotions. They give a nod, an acknowledgement to these other promotions, so that if, let's say, back in WCW's day, they had one of the top Japanese stars they had was, well, not one of the top Japanese stars, well, kind of at the time, Yuji Nagata. If people wanted to see more of Yuji Nagata, knowing that they wouldn't see him all the time on WCW, they can go see him in Japan. Why do you think Eric Bischoff came up with the idea of branching the NWO internationally over into Japan? Because he knew that some of the Japanese talent there, uh, it would be because he had some, well, but basically because he had some American talent that was working with New Japan at that time. But he knew if he expanded the NWO faction over to there, not only would it bring in Japanese talent over to here to get more exposure to the fan base and let fans get to know them better, but it would allow fans to want to see these athletes more, these wrestlers more than just on WCW. It would make them want to hunt down at the time the VHS tapes or read up on them in magazines and see, what they do, to see what they do in their promotion or with other promotions. You know, that's why when you ask the question, why is GFW doing this instead of focusing on their own promotion, it's because what they're doing is they're trying to live up, one, to what their name stands for, global force, but they're also trying to try to get a win-win situation. And that win-win situation is to give more exposure to some of these international talents that some people may or may not know of. And at the same time, they're able to scout those certain talents to see maybe if they want to bring them in exclusively under the GFW banner. I mean, why do you think they, allowed Ishimori, I think that's his name, to go all the way to the finals of the Super X Cup? Because they see potential in this guy. Why do you think they see potential in this guy? And they probably want to try to sign this guy to a contract if they could, to be exclusively part of GFW and nobody else. Um, when you take a look at Eddie Edwards, that's one of their own, but allowing him to go over to Pro Wrestling Noah and then working out a deal to where he goes over and becomes their champion in Pro Wrestling Noah, it's a win-win because one, they're giving exposure to this lesser known Japanese promotion, but they're also getting in exchange, they're getting, sorry for the lag there, they're, in exchange, they're um, they're getting an opportunity to scout certain talent over there to probably sign to their promotion. I mean, you don't think the guy that I can't think of his name right now, that Eddie Edwards B, you don't think they don't have their eyes on him? They do. They have their eyes on him. And, you know, this is a talent, if you will, that they would probably love to have under their banner exclusively. I mean, last night we saw the debut, the GFW debut of Pango, one of the psycho clowns, if you will, or formerly one of the psycho clowns in AAA. You had Josh Matthews and Jeremy Borash put him over as one of the most hardcore competitors to come out of AAA in Mexico. Why would they put him over? Why would they do that? Because they see potential of somebody, they see the potential of signing someone exclusively to the company. Do you think, I mean, come on, honestly, do you think they're just bringing them in to give exposure to AAA, the Crash promotion, and Pro Wrestling Noah? Yes, yes, they are, because like I said, it's a win-win situation, but they're also doing it because it's good business for them. It gets them exposure in those parts of the world, but it's also good business. Okay, it's good business for them, like I said, to get them exposure in those parts of the world and other parts of the world, but it's also good exposure for those companies because not many people know about the Crash promotion, and it's an up and coming promotion right now that founded. That Conan founded and wants to get on the map, and an association with GFW does that. AAA, pretty much everybody knows about, but being part of a company like GFW, being partnered with them, allows them to get more exposure, allows the talents to be seen more so than just, let's say, on Lucha Underground or internet pay-per-view, with English commentary. Same with Pro Wrestling Noah. Pro Wrestling Noah is not known as what I mean. Pro Wrestling is a very well-known company, but not known as well as New Japan. So, so allowing them to get exposure through GFW, through a partnership with GFW and vice versa, is a win-win. But at the same time, like I said, what this does for GFW is it allows them with all these promotions and all the other promotions they're associated with and partnered with, it allows them to scout the talent associated with those promotions to probably bring in and sign exclusively to a contract. That's why you have them. That's why you have them. You know, working with these other promotions. Yes, it gives more exposure to those promotions and their talents, just like what WCW did with New Japan and AAA, and all that. And WWE did it a few times with AAA in Japan. It gives exposure and becomes somewhat of a win-win situation because then you have the people over at Global Force and Anthem thinking, hey, this guy or gal is a good talent. I want to sign him to a contract. I want to make him part of GFW exclusively. And sorry for the lag there. And that's exactly what they could do. I mean, why do you think reports are going around that Lucha Underground uh, contracted talent are trying to break away from the Lucha Underground contracts? One, they don't know if there's going to be a season four, or they don't know. They're not getting any real answers, and that's why you have them showing up at Global Force and other promotions because they want that exposure. They know that if Lucha Underground goes away, they're going to probably lose that exposure, despite them being associated with companies like AAA. I mean, when you look at it, from like I said, you look at it from a business standpoint, it makes sense. Yeah, some people may say it's hurting GFW more so than it's helping it. But is it really? Is it really hurting him? Because let me ask you this. Do you see WWE? I mean, you probably see it now, so you probably see it more so now with Triple H leading the charge. But besides that, do you see WWE really reaching out to other promotions and say, "Hey, let's do a talent exchange"? Not really. It's only starting up right now. It's only becoming essential to WWE now because they see other promotions like GFW, like Ring of Honor, like PWG, as smaller, as smaller in stature, as they are compared to WWE. They see the success and the attention they're getting, and Triple H, he's looking at this like, hey, this could work for us too. Let's do a talent exchange. Why do you think they're sending Cassius Ono over to ICW to compete for the ICW championship? It's basically part of a testing ground to see, if a talent exchange could work, even on their level. But, even on their level. But that's why a company like Global Force Wrestling, as ridiculous as it sounds to someone like Jeff Siegel, the Slick Daddy, or Deluxe Man Alex, they're doing it because it's good business sense. They want to basically, from what is being said, they want to give exposure to other companies, and it sounds like other lesser known companies. Some well renowned and lesser known international and independent promotions. They want to give them that exposure so that people will become more invested, not just in Global Force, for the fact that Global Force is opening the door and letting this happen, and they're going to be able to see that talent that they see in these other promotions in a Global Force ring down the line. But it opens the door for those promotions to also get just as much of attention as Global Force is getting or Ring of Honor is getting. It gives them that opportunity to have somewhat of a win-win situation on all sides of the structure. Now, true, should they focus mostly on their talent? Absolutely. Excuse me, my finger hit the mic there. But yeah, absolutely, they should. They should focus on people like EC3. They should focus on people like Eli Drake. They should focus on Sienna, you know, and even the tag champs LAX. But here's the thing: their tag champs also work for Crash. So there's your answer of talent exchange, if you will, or exposure to other companies. You see, it may not make sense. It may not make good business sense in the eyes of a lot of people, but it does. Now I know you're thinking, well, it's kind of. Now I know you're thinking, well, Brian, it wouldn't make sense if Walmart said, "Hey, we're going to partner up with Target, and if we don't have it, we'll call up Target. You can go over there because we're partners with them. We're going to give them exposure." If, from a larger business perspective, if a partnership with Target was to help Walmart out and vice versa, from a larger business perspective, then yes, Walmart would probably do it. Walmart would probably go and do it. But here's the thing. Here's the thing. It would only, here's the thing. Companies would do something like that if it benefited both sides. And like I said, if Walmart had to partner up with Target or vice versa to you know, do a business proposition or work out some kind of partnership that would benefit both sides, and absolutely, we would do it because it would. If we could find it, if both corporations can find a win-win in the situation, they would do it, and that's what Global Force Wrestling is finding here. They're trying to find a win-win situation because not only does it give their company and their talent exposure with these other promotions internationally and in state, but it also gives the other promotions that they're partnered with, whether they're well renowned or they're not, it gives them and their talent the exposure as well, so that people nowadays in this day and age, social media and whatnot, with things like YouTube here, Facebook, Twitter, whatever, Google, that it would allow fans to want to open their minds to want to see or open up their investment to want to see these talents from these other promotions that they see in GFW. I mean, let me put it to you like this. Do you hear people complaining about Ring of Honor and New Japan partnership? Do you see people complaining about Ring of Honor, promoting New Japan? No, you don't. You don't see that because why? Because everybody sees it as a win-win situation. And here you have a company in Japan, in New Japan, that's supposed to be like the second biggest company, wrestling company in the world, right behind WWE, and yet you have them being partnered with Ring of Honor. Why? Because they know from a from a national broadcast scenario, it gives them more exposure here in the States, if not elsewhere around the world. They know, Ring of Honor that is, that not everybody on, well, Ring of Honor, but most, what I'm saying is that they know, Ring of Honor and New Japan as well, they realize not everybody gets access TV. So by partnering with Ring of Honor, they get more exposure than what they would do with Access TV, and that's a fact. You know it, and I know it. That's why nobody complains because it's a win-win. It's a win-win because it provides a bigger stage for the Ring of Honor talent to go over to Japan and apply their craft there against some new, fresh um, talent and have fresh matchups like the Lexman says WWE needs. And it's vice versa. It allows the New Japan talent to come over to Ring of Honor and compete against talent and have fresh matches that they've never had before. So it's a win-win situation, despite the fact that in some people's eyes, they're promoting another promotion, a promotion that's basically the second biggest promotion in the land, in the world behind WWE. But when you look at Global Force, this is why they're doing this. They're doing this because one, they want to give fans fresh matchups and fresh new talent, not just homegrown nationally and all that, but internationally as well. And by doing that, not only does it, like I say, allow GFW to scout this international and national talent and home national talent from these international and independent promotions, these international promotions and in-state independent promotions. Not only does it allow them to scout these talents to possibly sign them exclusively to the GFW roster, but at the same time, they're allowing the door to be open for these other promotions to get the exposure they need to get people's attention not just on the GFW product, but on all these other promotions as well, so they as well could have a chance at getting that national, international exposure they need to get towards the fans. So that so that when you look at it, that's why you have these that's why you have GFW putting so much emphasis on giving other promotions the exposure because it's a win-win situation. And in the end, when it comes to Global Force Wrestling, it's a win-win situation for them because because well, they're giving exposure to these other promotions and these international stars that are part of these promotions. At the same time, like I said, they're scouting those same talents, if not more so, to probably consider signing them to exclusive GFW contracts. You know, because when you think about it, as much money that they're making internationally and independently, which from what I hear nowadays is good money, you know, You look at GFW, and you got to think from their, and you got to look at it from their eyes, from their business strategy, that they could provide more exposure, they could provide more financial support or to these international independent talents if they sign them exclusively to GFW contracts. That's why these partnerships happen. Why do you think WCW, like I said, had the partnership they did with New Japan and AAA? Because eventually, as we saw, they signed some of those talents to exclusive contracts. Yes, part of those exclusive contracts with some of those international talents would be able to go back once in a while to the home promotion like AAA or New Japan and wrestle, but at the same time, they would be exclusive to WCW. That's why at house shows and live events, you saw a Rey Mysterio, you saw a Juventud, you know, you saw sometimes a Masahiro Chono, Ono, or Yuji Nakata, or an Ultimo Dragon, because they were signed to exclusive WCW contracts that would allow them to have to be more associated with World Championship Wrestling than their own home promotion that they made a name for themselves in, even though part of that deal would still allow them every now and then to go back and compete when necessary or when they would have the opportunity. I know that probably doesn't make sense, but think about it. Think about the talent, the international talent that was on those house shows. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I mean, I know it doesn't make sense, but it helps give exposure. But it helps, like I said, it's a win-win. It helps give exposure all the way around. But again, like I said, just like what WCW did, you can't tell me that GFW is not doing this because, oh, we want to give exposure to these other promotions. They are, but they're also doing it because they're looking and scouting certain talents that they can sign exclusively to a contract. That's what they're doing. As crazy as it sounds, it's the truth. Why do you think in that After Impact YouTube broadcast they did after GFW Impact went off the air? Why do you think I think you had Josh Matthews asking if they'd ever see Ishimori again. Why is he mentioning Ishimori when he knows Ishimori is a pro wrestling Noah talent? Why? Because GFW is looking at him is probably looking at him and thinking of signing him to an exclusive GFW contract to where he'd be GFW to where he'd be competing for GFW only and no one else. Maybe the deal would be similar to what you would have in WCW, where he'd be exclusive to GFW, but every now and then he can go back and wrestle for Pro Wrestling Noah. But he'd mostly be a GFW competitor. Same with El Fantastico, whatever his name is. Do you think GFW is putting him in this angle right now with Pango and whoever else they get it against EC3 and Eddie Edwards just because he's a AAA talent and they want to promote AAA? No, it's not just that. It's not just that. What they're doing is they're looking at Pango, they're looking at Phantasma, and they're like, here's two talents we could probably sign exclusively to contracts that would allow them maybe every now and then to go back to AAA and compete, but mostly make them exclusive to GFW. That's why when you ask the question why GFW Global Force Wrestling is focusing on these other promotions besides their own, it's that very reason. One, it opens the door nowadays in this day and age of social media, it opens the door to these other excuse me, excuse me there, these other well-renowned and lesser-known international and independent promotions, and allows fans to, you know, it allows fans to be introduced to them and probably put their eyes on them and want to know more about them and the talent involved. But at the same time, It's a win-win for GFW because it puts them on good terms, but it also allows them to scout certain talent to eventually sign to exclusive contracts. That's the whole deal. I mean, why do you think they're putting this GFW network out? One, financially, they know people will probably buy the premium subscription, but financially, it would allow them to make enough money to when they decide to look at the talent that they've been giving opportunities on impact from the international uh, perspective. It'll when the opportunity presents itself, it would allow them to approach those talents and offer them those exclusive contracts. Again, I know that doesn't make sense, but when you think about it, how else are you going to grow a roster to where when you eventually want to go out and do more live events, do pay-per-views or special events outside the impact zone, you're going to need a decent sized roster. And that's why they're doing this. That's the whole situation with this whole that in my opinion is the real reasoning behind the whole partnership that they have with AAA and the Crash promotion and Pro Wrestling Noah. It's not just to expose the world it's not it's not just to focus and expose the world to these other well-renowned and lesser-known international and in-state independent promotions. No, it opens the door for them to be on good terms and be on good terms with these promotions and the fans, put them in a positive light. But at the same time, it allows them to scout these talents to possibly down the line, when the opportunity presents itself, sign them to exclusive contracts to where, like I said earlier, it would still allow them maybe once in a while to go back and compete in their home promotion, but be exclusive to GFW only. See what I'm saying? Why do you think WCW had a successful partnership with AAA and New Japan? Because it allowed WCW to sign certain talents to exclusive contracts, but those contracts also allowed those talents to go back to the home promotions and compete if they needed to, as well as allowed it allowed for both companies to do talent exchanges at the same time, and it gave exposure to New Japan more so than it's ever had, more so than it ever had at that time. So for companies like Global Force to promote and focus on other promotions besides their own, it's nothing new. It's nothing really new. I mean, in the end, when you think about it, if GFW plans to expand and get bigger, and like I say, go on the road more often, and probably have pay-per-view events or impact tapings or live impacts outside the impact zone in outside the impact zone in other venues around the country, if not the world, then what kind of roster are they going to have? Then they're going to what kind of roster are they going to have? What I'm trying to say is, what kind of roster do you expect them to take with them if they do that? Right now, if you think about it, they don't have that big of a roster. But if they sign the talent they need to sign through these partnerships, they will have that talent. I know it sounds crazy, but it's the truth. It is the truth. You guys know it. I know it. It makes sense. I mean, like I said, if my company, Walmart, and Target were to partner up together and do an associate exchange to, let's say, one day I'm working for Walmart, and then the next day and then maybe before that day's out, I get told that the next day I'm going to be putting on the red and the white for Target for a day or so working for them. You don't think, let's say, Target wouldn't look at that and say, hey, this guy's good or this girl's good. Let's try to have them come over and work for us exclusively? Of course they would. But by partnering up with something like with another company like Walmart, it basically gives more exposure to both companies. It gives them an opportunity to see what other employees or associates could work out for either one of them through an exchange. It could work. it could work if they wanted to do something like that. And from a business perspective, on both separate sides, it would allow them, like what GFW is doing, to probably scout and probably try to convince those talents to be part of them exclusively. The point is, I know not a lot of people agree with GFW promoting and focusing on other promotions, motions and stuff like that. I get that. I understand that. And I completely agree that they should focus on their own talent. But the thing is, they need a roster to really get that company off the ground, to really get people to pay attention. They need a huge roster. And by bringing in talents that may still be signed exclusively to these other may still have ties to these other promotions like Johnny Impact, Johnny Mundo, Tyra Valkyrie, Phantasma, Pango, whatever his name is. For them to do, for them to focus on these talents as well as the promotions they represent, they're doing it because they want to sign them exclusively to GFW contracts down the line, so that even though they could go back and still compete for those other promotions every now and then, they would be GFW exclusive only. And I know a lot of people, I know I sound repetitive here, but what I'm pointing out, what I'm trying to get at, is this is why Global Force Wrestling is doing this. Not everybody's going to agree with it, but this is why they're doing it. Now, with that said, one other thing that a lot of people complain about is the focus on America's top team, or the American top team. You know, why is GFW focusing on them? American top team has, well, here's the reason. Not everybody knows about American top team unless they pay attention to UFC. And they only know American top team because of the fighters that are in UFC, not the fighters that are in WFOS or Bellator or wherever. They only know American top team because of the fighters that are in UFC. So this whole partnership with this whole angle with American top team is basically to get American top team over in a sense. Well, yeah, it is to get them over, which may not make sense to a lot of people, but they're doing it because they want to help America, because it's a partnership that allows more eyes to see these other fighters that are part of American top team, research them and see who they are fighting for, what promotions or companies they fight for, and it does, just like they're doing with these other wrestling promotions, it allows people to get eyes exposed to those other MMA promotions. Think about it. Do you think a lot of people know about Bobby Lashley being part of Bellator? No, they don't. This angle allows people to know about that. Do you think some of them know about some of the fighters that are part of WFOS? World Fighting Circuit or whatever it's called? No, they don't. This angle allows them to get to know about those fighters and who they work for or who they fight for, besides being represented by American Top Team. It's a win, and again, as crazy as it sounds, it's a win-win because it gives exposure to these other lesser-known MMA promotions, and at the same time, it gives exposure to GFW, to the eyes of the MMA fans, and because when they hear, oh wait a minute, American Top Team, because when they hear, let's say, some of the MMA experts or announcers or commentators talking about possibly this situation with GFW, it gets those those fans of MMA, it gets their eyes tuned over to GFW, and they makes them want to see what happens. The point is not a lot of people will agree with this, and I totally understand that. But if it's going to help get exposure for these lesser known MMA promotions, as well as at the same time get some of those hardcore or casual MMA fans to tune their eyes over to GFW, they're going to do it. They're going to do it just like they're doing with the whole promoting of other promotions. And again, just like GFW would scout some of the talents out of these promotions to probably sign them eventually, you can't tell me they won't look at some of the talent in American Top Team and say, "Hey, I want that guy or that guy or that guy or that gal, that guy or that gal or that guy or that gal. I want them part of GFW. I want to sign them to a contract." You can't tell me they're not looking into that either because they are. It's all about it's all about trying to expand the roster, expand it's all about a few things. One, it's about expanding the most importantly, it's about expanding that roster, growing that roster. That's why you have these partnerships, because eventually, some of the talents they bring in, that's they are scouting to try to sign to exclusive GFW contracts. You know that. Secondly, it gives more exposure to them as a company trying to regrow itself, trying to rebuild itself. But at the same time, it shows them in a positive. But at the same time, it gives exposure to some of these well-known, if not lesser known, wrestling promotions, and it puts them on good terms as far as business sense goes, as far as a wrestling business perspective goes. And third, and, and third, it puts more eyes on. And third, when it comes to American Top Team, it also it also brings that exposure to the other MMA promotions that not many people know about, and the American Top Team members that are part of them. But it also opens the door for them to be exposed to those MMA eyes when people hear about American Top Team being partnered with GFW, being put in an angle with GFW. You know, that's that's why GFW is doing this. That's why they're focusing on these other promotions besides their own right now. It's because it's to give more exposure. It's to give it more exposure to the lesser known promotions and some of the more renowned promotions, give them more exposure. But it's also to put them in a good light, a positive light. Like, hey, if this company can do this for us in a positive light, to where people can say, hey, if this company's doing this for these other promotions, maybe there's something good there. Maybe we should be part of it, or maybe we should tune in and see what they're doing, see why, they have all these partnerships, why people are talking positive about them, why certain talents want to be part of that company. That's why they're doing it. And again, like I said, it also comes down to the fact, in reality, they are scouting these talents to probably sign them to exclusive GFW contracts with a loophole that allows the talent to go back every now and then and compete for the promotion they once called home. It's it's similar, if not the same, with the deal with American Top Team. It gives exposure to these other lesser known MMA promotions where some of their fighters are part of, and at the same time, it gives exposure to GFW because it takes those MMA fans of those promotions and has them shift their eyes over to Global Force Wrestling because they're hearing about a whole partnership or angle that American Top Team has with the company. So overall, when you look at the whole thing with Global Force Wrestling and them focusing on other promotions, yes, they are. But should they be focusing on their own? Yes, they should. But when you look at it in the end, everything I've talked about here, when you think about it from a business perspective, either way you try to cut it, or either way you try to look at it from a negative perspective, you have to admit from a real life business perspective, it's a win-win. It is a win-win because down the line it allows GFW to grow the roster even more, or and get the exposure that's necessary, as well as put exposure on these other lesser or sometimes more renowned promotions, as well as with the American Top Team deal, allows them to give focus and exposure to those lesser known MMA promotions promotions that some of the fighters are a part of. And in turn, it allows those, and in turn, it allows the eyes of the MMA fan to go over to GFW and see what they have to offer if they hear about American Top Team being associated with them. So overall, with it, no matter how you slice it, I have to say that, I'll say this: yes, they should focus on their own promotion and their own talent, but in a sense, from a business perspective, it's kind of a win-win, whether you agree with it or not. So that's all really I'm going to say on it, folks. Let me know what you think down below. Comment if you like. Thank you all for watching live, and thank you all to those that watch post live after this was uploaded. Let me know what you guys think, and I will talk to you later.